It's another round of SDH AM. John here, you there, and the hair's out of control. Man, I swear. You sit there, and before you put the headset on, you're sitting there and you're going, it looks like it might be a decent hair day. And then the hair sits there and goes, not so fast, my friend. So hang on. There we go. That's as close as it's going to get, I think. All right. Another go round of SDHM. It's Wall Pass Wednesday. Whatever's on your mind, we've got a lot to get into today. And it's going to start after opening monologue and opening kickoff with our friends from Ball Watching. Jake and Justin are going to drop by, and we're going to kind of get into our previews of MLS coming up here in 2026. Jake and Justin got to see the palace intrigue of an offseason for St. Louis City SC, and we will catch up with them and find out on the field, off the field, Joao Klaus out, Dante Polvara in. How do we keep it from being Dante's Inferno? Coach, front office, all the things as they try and figure out who they are. So they're coming up in about 8 minutes or so, and we will catch up with them. Then, big night in CONCACAF, couple of different reasons. And first one was the weather. Last one was a big moment for a new club in Major League Soccer. And we had a match in between where the decided underdog was hanging around. 3 matches last night. We'll go into your highlights. We've got some posts from the first match and the last match. We'll preview what's going to happen tonight with the other 2 matches on the other half of the bracket. Then we've got to get into what else is going on in Major League Soccer. We may flip the order a little bit just to kind of stick with Major League Soccer. The stadium situation in Vancouver. We have the updates on that from a couple of different sources in the Vancouver market, and we'll let you know what the latest is there. And to kind of give you the update on Vancouver, and they're looking at other places. City wants them to stay in town. They want them to stay at BC Place, and all of those particular elements that are attached to that. So we'll have that coming up. So MLS, St. Louis, Vancouver, CONCACAF in and out. We've got some other stuff going on. We can let you know what's going on with the OFC Pro League. They are in their second hub situation, and so we'll update you on the stats there. Going to tease a couple of interviews coming up that we have in the league coming down the pike next couple of days, and those are going to be rolled over into the morning shows. And they also have their Champions League tournament going on in Samoa, and there's some interesting stories that have to do with America with the clubs that are playing in their Final Four in Samoa. So we'll get into that as well. We've got Copa Libertadores to get into, Sudamericana to get into, all the AM news to get into. So safe to say there's stuff. So there's plenty of stuff to get into, plus whatever else is on your mind this morning, and we'll lay it all out for you as we go over the next little while. I'm trying to see if I missed anything here while I was lighting everything up. But no, I don't think I have, at least at the moment. But also whatever else is on your mind this morning. Morning, David. Morning, Alex. And we still have some folks that are having residual windows from transfer deadline day in Europe. Remember, a couple of places like South America and Turkey are open for another couple of days. And N'Golo Kante got his contract torn up. And so he got to head from Saudi Arabia to Turkey. And you've got stuff like that too. So that's kind of where we are today. And it's going to be one of those intriguing days as I put the pinky up to the side of the mouth, kind of very, very Dr. Evil like. So we'll see what it looks like coming up here in just a couple of minutes. And obviously we're keeping an eye on our friends at the Washington Post. That might be our coda for the morning as we kind of keep an eye on what's going on there. There was supposed to be a Zoom call about 40 minutes ago. Everybody was told kind of to stay at home. No one come in. And in about 40 minutes ago is when the Zoom call started. And that's probably going to be the tail end of our discussion this morning. Is the CODA will be discussing the Washington Post. We'll tell you what, since these guys, they have actual like real life work, they have like real jobs. They have graciously consented to be a part of the morning show before they start their real work. And so we're going to bring in Jake and Justin from Ball Watching. They are on the Tom Coughlin scale, and we do appreciate them coming in because if you are, in fact, 5 minutes early, you're on time. And if you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, we shut the door and lock it, and you're not allowed in the team meeting. And so Jake and Justin joining us this morning from Ball Watching, they have now officially evolved and turned into opening kickoff. So I'm going to read my promo, and then we'll get into the segment, and then I'll ask how long I have you guys this morning. Opening kickoff brought to you by Black Pitch Coffee, blackpitchcoffee.com. We start your day with the most important stories in the game, and the right way to start your morning. Black Pitch Coffee is part of the SDH community, showing up at events all over Atlanta. Try their home blend, made with beans from Brazil and Guatemala, heavy-bodied, notes of walnut and semi-sweet chocolate, and a rich world-class finish. Opening kickoff, powered by Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. So, gentlemen, you guys are opening kickoff. Mazel tov. It's good to see you.
Great to be back on the show. Good morning. Good morning. No, we're excited to be here. A lot happening in the St. Louis City sphere, and curious to hear what the fans that aren't as close to it as us are listening and hearing about St. Louis, because the times are evolving.
Yes, and that is kind of why we wanted to catch up with you guys as we're in training camps and find out what life is like there. So who won the toss? Who gets to answer questions first, or at least figure out if they won or deferred?
I'm gonna go with I won and deferred to Jake. I always defer to Jake. He's the absolute founder of this, so I'll let him take the first hard one and then throw me a softball afterwards.
Okay, I see how this works. All right. So Jake, nothing going on in the offseason, huh?
No. Absolutely nothing. I mean, just about as much as you could possibly imagine is happening at this club right now. It reminds me of our inception, where we're going out finding a sporting director finds coach, sporting director and coach finding new players. And yeah, very, very much feels like a rebuild of sorts here at St. Louis City. I think for good reason, 2 pretty dismal seasons by the standards that were set in year one, which were also probably not a fair standard to set with winning the West. So, I think it's good, but I think it is definitely taking steps back to right the kind of the foundation, get us on the right track, and kind of everyone rowing in the same direction. But I think it's going to be a pretty gritty year from what we're kind of seeing. It's nothing that I also think the expectations are probably pretty low for those around the league for what St. Louis is going to bring, at least this season. But I do think this is going to be a project that will probably take a couple of years to really kind of reach a point where we feel like we're really in a competitive window.
Okay, so then, Justin, let me have you lay out the road here. So everything that happened in the offseason, Joao Klaus no longer there, so he's out the door. You brought in Dante Polvara recently for $500,000. You've got stuff going on touchline, front office. Did I miss anything? What are the gaps here that happened in the offseason that folks are going to be staring at?
I mean, the biggest one is for sure Joao Klaus, our first DP, leading goal scorer for the club, not only last season with 10 goals, but all time. So that's going to be a big one. And right now, we currently do not have a replacement. We've had Johan de Bay go on and in some of his interviews mention Simon Betcher, who is a St. Louis alum. Go Bills. Basketball as well. Jason, I know you follow that as well. But him and McSorley kind of stepping in the role right now. I know that the team, Corey Ray and team, are looking to find that replacement. We've had some rumors that we've heard about there, but it's not there yet. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's that close either. So we're very likely, or 100% going to be starting the season without a true number 9 for this team, which I think is going to be hurtful for us. Also, when you look at the back line, Henry Kessler is no longer with the team. I would say he was the rock for us when he was healthy. So now with the change in coaching with Johan de May, it looks like we're going back to a back 5. We're going to have 3 center backs. And we signed Dante Polvara, but if you didn't hear it this week already, he's going to be pulled back in to be one of those center backs. He will not be in that holding position in front of the back line as well. So that'll be left with Leuven and either Durkin or Edelman, who we signed from New York Rebels. And then that back line will likely be a mix of the 2 falls, Mbake and Falu, with Baumgartel and or Dante Polvara. But unfortunately, also Falu Fall is injured right now. So it's a lot going on right now. We did re-sign Roman Berkey, obviously. That was way earlier. So we still have that sort of the spine. When you look at him, Leuven, and Hartel, who I think in Hartel is probably one of the best 11 in the MLS when he is on his game. But it's still a lot of moving parts.
12 out, 6 in. For those that don't have the scorecard, out: Alm, Morales, Devin Paleford, Pedro, Watts, Wenzel, Antwi, Jaden Reed, Joey Zielinski, Christian Oliveras, Joao Klaus, Henry Kessler. In: Edelman, as you mentioned, Valum, Santos, Fall, Polvara. Did I miss anybody?
No,
miss anything,
you
Jake?
didn't.
Just a revolving door. It feels like we're Elf, just going when you visit New York and just running around in a circle. And it's like we can't keep up with the admin.
And this is probably not the end, too. I think this season is more so the beginning. I think if you look at the contract terms for those that we do have on the book still, 2026 is the end for a lot of these contracts, with options for most of them have options for 27 as well. But I think that's when you look at Corey Ray and now Ali Mackay, who's now joining as an assistant sporting director. That was breaking last night, not official yet by the club, but that's, I feel like, when they can probably really kind of put their fingerprints on this and probably make some pretty sweeping overhauls with some of the salaries and, budget charters that are coming off the books, because there will be a lot more flexibility post this season.
And you mentioned, Jake, the front office. Justin, when you look at now the unofficial official look at Mackay and Corey Ray, when you look at the legacy of a gentleman who had issues with Penguins, or just enjoyed time with Penguins, when you look at Lutz Pfannenstiel, Justin, what is the legacy of the first front office in St. Louis?
I mean, I think the legacy is still extremely positive. When you think about what Lutz did and created this team from scratch, literally from scratch, was able to pull all these guys. Everybody has opinions on that, whatnot. It was a hell of a first season. I think he obviously always talked about it being a 5-year plan. He started with the club 2 years prior. So, yeah, it kind of ironically ended after those 3 years for him. I do think, and I want to thank him, because I also don't think that we would have Dante Polvara without him coming over from Aberdeen. There were other clubs. Even Columbus was looking at him, and I have a feeling that Lutz was like, no, I'll lock you up for St. Louis if that's something you want to do. So appreciate him and everything he has done. As we see this transition in that front office, I think you're going to see his transition in the makeup of the team. Also, not only from a personality or playing style perspective, but also from where these guys are from. We're no longer going to be that Bundesliga 2 team that everybody always kind of joked about past couple of years, because that was Lutz's breeding ground, right? I think that was his best connections. Now you think about Corey Ray and team, it's going to look like it's going to be a little bit more U.S. focused, or maybe some pieces from all around, but I don't think it's going to be a direct link to Germany.
So, Jake, I would posit this, that in your first incarnation, stylistically, when you to me, at times it was like looking at the pitcher that got the call up from the minors for the spot start, comes up from AAA, and you don't have a book on him. And so he'll give you 5 1/3, 5 2/3, give up an earned run, leave with runners on base, get the win. But the second time through the league, if he stayed, that was when the league caught up with you and figured out what your book was. I would posit the same thing happened in the playoffs with City, where you had no one looked at you. First game in a playoff series, okay, I don't know what I've got. Then in games 2 and game 3 was when you were found out and exposed, and that seemed to be, I guess, the issue. Come at me once, I don't know what I'm catching. Come at me more than once, I think I know what I'm dealing with. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Frankly, that's a really good comparison. I think I would even backdate it even more. I mean, I'd say our first spin through the league, most of the Western Conference opponents obviously went very positively in 2023. And then you hit the kind of midway or the turning point where I think we had either just about to enter or just came out of Leagues Cup, the first iteration of Leagues Cup, and it was downhill from there. We kind of limped our way into the playoffs. We limped our way to the Western Conference #1. We almost blew that, and obviously did not go very far in the playoffs as well. And I think really since that, it kind of feels like that was the turning point in this club, and we've kind of felt, found out with Carnell, couldn't get it back going again in 2024, and obviously we parted ways with him, and he's doing great things now in Philly. And then you bring on Olaf Melberg, and you see a lot of interim coach time as well. Olaf Melberg wasn't a fit. I think stylistically we're really trying to find or refine now our identity, because I think we thought we had it in year 1, and you can call that identity. But if the identity doesn't win you games, consistently, throughout the course of a season, it's not an identity really worth having. So I think we're really going to see some big changes from at least what we're trying to do with and without the ball this season with Yohan Demey. I have a feeling that, cut from the same cloth and under the same, mentorship with Wilfred Nancy, and having guys that have a much higher level of comfortability on the ball where we don't toss it around like a grenade. It's not just kick and run. It's not just give it to them and see if we can poach it off them in dangerous places. So, I mean, that's where I'm going. That I want to see that. I think that is where the modern game is going. There will be some big learning pains, obviously, along the way, because that's a dangerous thing to do. But you can see it in the recruitment style. Most of the guys we're getting have a level of comfortability with the ball that maybe we're not so used to seeing around here.
And I want to add on to that real quick, Jason. If you go back to our first season, yeah, we won our first 5 games. Awesome, getting 15 points. In the last 11 games of the season, so from August 26th on, we had 8 points through 11 games. So that's to your point. That's usually when you start playing teams for the second time, coming back around. We had 56 points in our first season, 37 the year after, only 32 last year. I can't keep going down. At some point we got to go up, but it's still very kind of topsy-turvy and very fluid situation in St. Louis.
Yeah. So, when you mentioned grenade, it's like literally, did the ball have cooties at points offensively? I mean, was it just one of those where you're sitting there and you're going, I ain't touching that thing.
No.
Was it that way?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely an over dramatization of it, but no, I definitely think from where we started, I can't think of many memorable moments, but I can even look back at the stats and say, when did we ever win possession? And I'm not saying possession is the key to victory, right? But it's what you do with the ball. And we were very effective when we had the ball, but we had so little of the ball. And that was on purpose. I think because we just knew that we didn't have the ball players to kill teams with possession, find those incisive passes and pick them apart like other teams can. That just wasn't our style. And I think we're going to try to slowly get back into that a little bit more. But we were way down one side of the spectrum to start in 2023. And I think we're kind of working our way to the other side. But again, that takes a lot of confidence, takes a lot of chemistry, takes a lot of training time, really kind of honing those tactics and what DeMay wants to bring in. By the way, we still haven't seen a game yet, right? We're still in preseason. That's just a lot of speculation at this point. But if it's anything like where he came from in Columbus, you'd imagine that's kind of what he wants to do here.
Early loss. That is not me calling. Red Bulls get a 3-1 win back on the 24th, 2-2 draw with Tampa on the 28th. And then you're going to Indio to take on Portland today, as a matter of fact. And then you head to Coachella Valley to take on Austin, LAG, and then you're back in India to take on DC United back on the 14th to wrap up preseason. Let me ask the fan question, Justin. What's been the vibe with all of this change? Let me go back to the Joao Klaus move first. What was the vibe when Klaus was shipped to LAG? Was it tiki torches and pitchforks? I mean, what was the response?
No, I don't think so. I would say on a first glance, it's like, wow, how are we getting rid of this guy? How are we going to replace it? How are we going to score? I think from a fan perspective, that's exactly how you should look at it, right? But from a business perspective, $2.4 million on a guy that has 1 year left, it's not a terrible move by City from that perspective. However, I think as we've already talked about, with this team trending down, I don't think it screams that you're really working towards the fans at this point. Like, you want to hold on to that guy for this season. You want to show that you're working towards something. I understand, yeah, the cash is nice, but if you don't have an immediate backup plan, you just saw this happen with PSV and Ricardo Pepi. They originally agreed to that deal with Fulham, and then they're like, whoa, we don't have a backup plan. Ours fell through. We're not doing it. Kind of wish City would have went through with something like that, in my opinion. Not saying it had to be the exact same, but yeah, it's upsetting to see him go in that sense, specifically for Klaus. But we're here now. We have the cash. What can we do with it? But as far as like where are we at as a fan group, I don't want to say that's it. Like, it's been so many moves that I don't even think people have really had the time to realize, like, where are we going to be in the standings? I was kind of shocked when we saw like David Gus and those guys on Soccer Wise. They set our points line at 42.5. That is a 11-point increase from last season. Okay. Quite the jump, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think some people see some optimism in this team. I think right now it's still like, let's pump the brakes. I don't even know for sure what formation we're going into. It's likely going to be 3 center backs, but there is a lot of moving parts. So I don't even think people have had time to like breathe and reassess this team.
So then, Jake, where is the offense going to come from?
That's the $1 million question right now. I mean, I think it revolves around a couple of pieces. I think it revolves obviously around Marcel Hartel, getting a version of him at least on par with last year, if not better. You're going to absolutely need that. That's probably point number one to create for us, just because when the ball gets to his boot, his vision, his final pass, even his shooting. I mean, he's a great dynamic attacker to have. Got to have him clicking. I think Edu Leuven being available for the majority of the season, whether that's, he had some injury issues last year, also had some family stuff going on as well. If you can count on him consistently throughout a season to be that 8, that box-to-box guy that also kind of chips in with, the occasional goal from a set piece here or there, but his delivery is great. His vision is great. His passing from deep is amazing. I mean, nothing like that in this team outside of Leuven. So you got to have him available as well to help kind of connect, defense to attack. And then you're going to need someone up top to have a really strong season and say, okay, Klaus is gone. This is my time. I think it's probably going to be starting with Simon Betcher. And he's shown us a little bit of flashes of both throughout his time with us so far, where he can be hot, he can be scoring, he can take low XG chances and convert on those and find the right places. But last year he was finding the right places, just not able to slot that final finish away. So it's going to come to a Betcher or a McSorley, even, a draftee from a couple years back on, I think they're going to get a run here. I don't think we're going to sign that 9 right away and put him right into the 11 to come for our first, match here coming up in a couple weeks now. So it's going to take a lot of things going really, really well, injuries being staved off, and someone finding form up top that, give the ball to me, I'm going to put it in the back of the net. So it's going to take a lot. The attack is where I'm most concerned at this point, I think.
Marcel Hartel Holiday Inn. Okay. Justin, what about our guy Mekhi Joyner? I mean, where is he in this process? He lights up on the 2s and he lights up next pro. What's the curve on our gentleman Joyner?
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of talk through our depth chart. We're huge fans of Mekhi Joyner. I think he's a young guy that obviously that needs to get more time with this team, especially with the openings that we have. The thing is that we do have a lot of we're pretty heavy on the attacking side of guys that can fill roles, but I don't know who's going to take it. So when you think about who else could start, it would be Celio Pompeo. He's probably getting in behind him. Toy Shirt as well. And then you also have Caden Glover and Brendan McSorley. So that's if you keep him in the front. I know you can also play him if we're doing three center backs. You can probably play him at a wide winger, right back or left back. Thank you, as Santos, and so we have some other guys there. But ultimately, I do think that you're going to see a much more increased role for him in this team. I would love to see him stay up with the first team for the majority of the season. Obviously, this is one of those young guys where you don't want to stunt his growth by just calling him up to keep him on the bench and be like, oh, you're there, you're in the squad. Like, no, get some minutes with City too. However, when he is in the squad, put that man on the field because he's a difference maker. And Jake's already mentioned it. We're going to have trouble scoring, and he knows how to find the back of the net. Led the MLS Next Pro, I believe, in the entire MLS Next Pro last season. So for goals per minutes played. And so he's a guy that I would love to see a little bit more this season.
426 goals per minutes played. That's the actual statistic. I'm kidding. But I mean, we've been high on seeing what Joyner and McSorley have been able to do at the next pro level. And then McSorley had the cup of coffee and cup competitions, and you got to see what he was able to do there. So we are thumbs up on the young guys and letting them shine as well. So Jake, as Justin was going through the offensive scoring section of the depth chart, what has been the feedback on Yohan Demay so far in St. Louis with him taking over there? What's the feedback been like?
Yeah, it's still so difficult right now because we've obviously seen and heard so little from him, just given it's still preseason, and he wasn't hired that long ago. It's been less than, I think, 2 months. Maybe, I want to get the exact date, but it's not been long. So, for him, the comments that he made coming in were, impactful. Like, the guy wants to win. He clearly, I think, throughout the interview process, noticed and clocked there was a level of misalignment, maybe sometimes between some of the sporting staff and what was going on the field. So I think for him, it's a project, right? I do think that he looks at this and is realistic and realizes that he might not have all the tools in the shed ready to go for this season. But I also believe that from an ownership perspective, they've probably communicated to him that we're not going to be the same like we were with Olaf Melberg or Carnell in year 2. We realize this is very much in its infancy. We're going to give you the reins and the leeway to make this what you need to make it. Obviously, you got to sprinkle in some wins and bide some time here and there. But, I think Yohan realizes that he's got a little bit of runway with this team to do what he wants to do. And what he wants to do is probably a little more complex than what we've been used to doing as a club. So as a person, he's a little more reserved, definitely, than what we've seen before. Like coming from the last interim that I'm just totally blanking on right
Melberg.
now. Yeah, well, not even Olaf, but
Rich.
yeah, Critchley, John was so fun on the microphone during the press conferences. He was very forthcoming, very kind of uppity. And I don't think DeMay is that same level of energy. He's a lot more matter of fact. And like Justin, I think, highlighted earlier, then there are some things that he's already kind of laying at least some thoughts out that we're going to be seeing differently. Like, for a guy like Conrad Wallen, we mentioned, he's an incoming this year, but he was a loan last year. So he's kind of a same face before. But Wallen played every position on the field last year at different times for different reasons. This is I think DeMay wants him to stay at a left wing back or a right wing back position and really make that his own and master that craft. He's also mentioned, like Justin talked about, Polvara, stepping back into the center back. So I think for him, he's bringing more of that technical skill to the back line so that we can actually use the back line as a fulcrum or as the beginning of an attack versus, our last ditch on defending, like, just one dimensional, maybe a two-dimensional type defense. But he's mentioned positional flexibility, a lot of things you heard during the Nancy reign in Columbus. So it's a lot of speak at this point. I'm not going to weigh too heavily on like where I think he's at and how I think it's going so far until we really get some matches under the belt. But I think we're excited. He's got something to prove. Hasn't had this position before, like on a permanent basis. So I think that's for a lot of guys, honestly, that we've hired and brought in. This is a very much a prove it type of front office right now that's brought in some now experience with Ali Mackay. But a lot of players as well are out there to prove it and show that you belong at this level and you're going to be a part of this project.
Well, considering that Missouri is a part of the discussion, it is a show me year. I think that for St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, what went wrong with Olaf Melberg?
There's a lot there.
Dude, we got time. I just don't want you to get in trouble with the regular gig.
No. We're fine. I'll sum it up pretty quickly, though. I think one, when they hired him, he said that a style of play that he was able to play was then ultimately not what he played when he brought it over here. So that's what Carolyn Kindle said. You got to take it all with a grain of salt, right? Like maybe he didn't say that, but he's a scapegoat. He's out, so he can't say anything else afterwards. So two, he lost the locker room. To be completely honest, we've heard from players and some other people that ultimately the attitude that he had towards the game and the players, it just didn't feel very serious. You probably could have noted that with his hair, beard, flip-flops, and whatnot. But ultimately he was doing like crossbar challenges before and during practices, like while the guys are playing, like by himself.
Dude's
so it's like at some point,
coaching MLS basically. The only thing missing was the pullover that you get at Stuckey's, I guess. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. So I mean, there was a lot that went wrong, and it went wrong very quickly. I will say the team was not performing. You can't place it all on the guy. But I think when you lose the locker room, it shows on the field very quickly, and that's something that he had, and that's honestly something that we had with Carnell towards the end there as well. Obviously, Carnell has done very well up in Philadelphia, but at some point, once the guys stop liking who they're playing for, it just, you lose the enjoyment on the field and off the field.
So then, Jake, who persevered? Who on the roster this season persevered through all of that madness and actually showed out and gave that, okay, there's some promise with this individual, this was a good pickup, regardless of formation, regardless of coach, whether it was Melberg or Critch or the early Christmas present with Yohan DeMay, who has persevered through this the most, you think?
Man, yeah, persevere. There's definitely a couple players that come to mind in terms of, if I just want to be objective about it and share some stats. But Marcel Hartel, I think, is one of those that you kind of, you kind of played at different places on the pitch throughout the different types of coaches that were here last year. But starting off under Olaf, he, I think, covered the most ground in distance in the MLS last year. And that's not something you really say about a lot of those creative 10s. But, that effort wasn't lost on us. The ability for him to find those chances created, he was in the top echelon in MLS for that as well. So I definitely think he is a guy that, regardless of who was on the touchline, he was going to be one of your, consistent 7, 8, point performers out of 10 every match. Just because if there wasn't a Hartel in the lineup, I don't know where we would have been. I'm trying to think because honestly, it was such a weird season because there were so many injuries and you really didn't get a lot of consistency out of guys. But I think from maybe like the quarter way through the rest, I also think Klaus was one of those guys that obviously he got this move. The Galaxy believe in him. And he put up 10 goals for us last year. And that's not a lot, but he was a team leader in that. Hartel was right beneath him coming up into the last match day. And he made the most of those opportunities. And he kind of found his goal scoring boots. I can name more, John, guys that did not take advantage of the situation and did not, perform up to expectations and probably led to them, being on the bench and also being looked at a little more critically in this window right now. Like I can think of a Toy Shirt who just didn't have it last year. And compared to what he was doing in 24 towards the end of the season, just banging goals for fun, didn't have it. He had a down year. Our back line, we were roasted. I mean, the goals against ballooned last year as well. It was just a really, really trying season for a lot of guys. I think Awala maybe was another good example where he was a positivity. I mean, he played midfield, played both sides of the wing backs, played fullback. I mean, he played everywhere on the pitch and showed his versatility, which was so needed last year. But you also then, if you play a guy everywhere, where is he really going to excel and be the best at? And so that's why I'm hoping we kind of turn that corner this year. But those are some of the names that come to mind for me.
Okay, so are there any to add since Jake was saying these dudes didn't? Justin, was there anybody else in your mind that didn't last year as opposed to those that did in having the rough year that St. Louis had?
I mean, it unfortunately, if we're going to add to the didn't list, it's a lot of the guys that were injury plagued. So if we look at like a Henry Kessler, I would have loved to see a lot more out of him. And then other than that, it's like Thomas Dolan didn't get a whole lot of minutes, which now he should be our starting right back. So I do want to give these guys a little bit of an out in the fact that they did have another interim coach that they didn't like. So once you start with that, then you're midseason. And by the time that he was let go, we were pretty much screwed. Like we would have had to go on an incredible run to make the playoffs. So there's a lot of tinkering and different styles that were being had with Chris, and nothing wrong with that from Chris to try to figure it out, try to see if we can turn it around. But for some of these guys like Vollum, it's like, how do you know where you're going to play if you're going to play? But I do want to add to that and say some of the best ability is availability. And Marcel Hallertau was second in the MLS in minutes played for field players, only behind Carlos Gil. 9 goals, 6 assists for us. So that is true, just hard work and effort, as Jake mentioned, covering the most ground. So he's a huge call out, and I think it's going to be another one for Conrad Vollum. Connor, even though he was all over the place, didn't have a consistent starting spot or even consistent starter, he was still second in the team in minutes with Joao Klaus. So that's a guy that was also just working his butt off, and I'm happy to have both of them.
Got to mention McSorley, John. You already mentioned him. Justin mentioned him before. That guy, he was a late bloomer, right? He wasn't really in the picture starting the season, but he scored a brace into the season, really found his form. I feel like Justin and I were here for it. The exhibition match we played against Aston Villa, where he came on in the second half and did not care what these jersey names said, both the logo and the name. He was a kid and he was a bull in a china shop. Like did not give any regard to his body nor the opponent in a positive way. Like he wasn't being cheap out there, but the tenacity, the energy that he brought to that game, I think he left an indelible mark on Critchley at the time and the staff, because obviously they gave him, a vote of confidence, got some late starts, got some goals. I'm really, really curious to see if that was lightning in a bottle, and that was just like, I got my chance, I'm going to put everything into this, or if that's just who he is as a player, and you're going to expect to see just a tenacious, fox in the box type poacher in McSorley, because the fans loved what he put out, because it's hard not to, right? Like this guy's leaving it all out there. He's bringing some output as well. That's easy to get behind.
And I just have this vision now of human bumper cars with Brendan McSorley. And
yeah.
Seeing what that's going to look like at 18. I found the goal stats from last year, and it was Joao Klaus double figures with 10, and this is MLS. This is not all comps. This is straight up MLS. Marcel Hartel Holiday in with 9, Leuven with 6, Toy Shirt and Bashir with 3 each. So you've got a big drop off. You literally got 3 dudes with 25 goals of your output in Major League Soccer. Then Toy Shirt and Bashir each with 3, Pompeu McSorley with 2. Vollum, Hebert, Akil Watch, Josh Yarrow, Ostrak, Sangbin, Orozco, and Makai Joyner were the ones that scored other than that. So, 3 dudes with 25 and then a lot of dreaded others down that list.
And one's gone.
Yeah, and one of them, almost half of those 10 is now gone. So I would say, but to your point that we've been talking about for these young guys, Makai Joyner, I know we joked about like 426 goals per minute. He did have 18 goal contributions in 1,076 minutes. So he had a goal contribution every 60 minutes for City 2. And then also when you go and look at Brendan McSorley, he was more of a mainstay on City 2 and he had 23 games played, 23 starts. He had 8 goals and 8 assists. So I really do think that if both of those guys can bring just even a little bit of that, and I would love to see both of them maybe have 3 to 5 goals each and be like that third to fourth goal scorer for this team. That's just raising that base that you already talked about, John, that just like absolutely falls off. So I think it's one that's going to be very important for us, that we're going to give these guys some time and some minutes. But you did mention one there that we haven't talked about at all. Sangbin. I think he is going to be a very interesting X factor for us. He's going to be up there on the right wing. Brought him in from Minnesota. He's flashy. He's fast. And I think he's going to be an important role for this team.
So I want to ask Jake about the environment there. Obviously, the announcement yesterday that came out for LA 28 that Energizer is going to be a part of the East goes West when it comes to everything soccer, which I think it's a cool idea because you want to expose the country to everything when it comes to the soccer competition in the LA Olympics in 28. What has there been staying power when it comes to the fan base ever since everything rolled out, or is it the dips and flows with wins and losses, or has it been fairly static with a new franchise in Major League Soccer? What has the involvement, enthusiasm level been so far?
I would say static couldn't be further from the truth for this fan base. I mean, very much a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it, frankly, goes back to year one, where a lot of new fans, right? Like not all people, when St. Louis City shows up in St. Louis, were huge MLS fans or even huge soccer fans. They just wanted to support like a local team here. And to be spoiled in that way and win first in your conference that year, I think it just set an unfair precedent or an expectation in a lot of fans' minds that this is where we kind of belong. You know, we're St. Louis and everyone's got, you know, your bias towards St. Louis sports. And when you're not there, you're not doing enough. And I definitely think this fan base is at a little bit of a lull right now where we're definitely in a show me state where, you know, what we've seen the last 2 years, we've been promised a lot of things and even goals have been shared outright in very public forums on where we want to be, what we want to do. And they've been missed. And there's not much to hang your hat on right now. I definitely think, like, you know, we try to maintain some level of an even keel, just knowing the game a little bit more than maybe some of the casual fans, that this is just, it takes time. And what you did in year one is just not an expectation to have for this franchise moving forward. But I think more than anything, I loved that news yesterday. I think people probably overlook the significance of that, having the Olympics back, by the way, in St. Louis, having been hosts in 1904 during, I think, the second iteration of this first soccer tournament there. So a little fun fact for everyone. But no, like some people, John, might hear that and be like, wow, that's so cool. Like St. Louis, you know, we're at the Olympics. So you might say, I'm not talking about St. Louis soccer scene until you sign me another DP number 9. So I think there's people that feel very hurt and they need, you know, show me the money. They want to see that product on the field, the thing that we've been promised, or at least that you showed us in year one. When do we return to that? Wake me up when that comes. There are others that are along for the ride. I'd say like us that are riding through the ups and downs. And that's part of being a fan. In my opinion, like you can't have the ups without some of these downs and these lulls. So I think the fan base is really volatile at times and just high expectations, loud people on social media. But honestly, when it comes down to it, they show up. They definitely show up at Energizer Park.
And it's going to be an interesting summer because if you haven't seen as well, John, the Blues are down bad. We are 22-1 to make the playoffs. The Cardinals win total is dropping below 70 right now. I think you can get it at 69.5 on DraftKings as well. So this City team, they're going to be having more fans because people are going to be looking for something else to watch. And I really hope that they can take that opportunity and do the best with it.
So then my main question as we wrap up, and thank you for going into added time on this, is why isn't Country Grammar the goal song?
It's a great question. I've seen people legitimately post that exact thought on X, on Instagram multiple times. Actually, it's sometimes I feel like I've heard it as the goal song. It's not always consistent with us, and frankly, we didn't score a lot of goals last season, the ones that we're used to. So it's like my mind is somewhere else entirely when we score a goal. I'm like, wow, this is a miracle. Can't wait to talk about this in the show, that we actually put a tally up on net. But it's got to be. It's absolutely got to be. You got to have that local pride. They have a lot of cool stuff going on with the stadium in terms of experience, what they try to do. But Nelly's been a game ball guy that brought the game ball out and hypes up the fans beforehand. He's easy money. Everyone knows that. Like, everyone knows Nelly. I'm all in support of that.
I mean, Justin, when the stadium first was completed, and this is just me, and I was looking on social media, I literally saw people testing the sound system inside the stadium, and you're hearing that verse, and I'm going, slam dunk. Oh my God, this is it. This you're done. That's easy. And then all of a sudden, it disappears.
We're getting, I think we've gotten a lot into like that techno, younger EDM type stuff. I will say they did include some Metro Boomin. He's from St. Louis, but no one knows that as much as Nelly. It needs to be, I'm from the Lou and I'm proud. Shake a tail feather. It's hot in here. Give it everything. I don't care. Let's just rotate through them for all 7 goals we're going to score this year.
I mean, for me, literally, it's like, I'm from the Lou and I'm proud. I'm like, okay, you're done. I mean, that was the easiest thing for me in all of this to get everything squared away. Guys, I cannot thank you for doing this, especially now that we're going to finish up before 9 o'clock in the morning in God's time zone. Just ask the boss about that one. Jake hit the promo for me. And then Justin, if you missed anything, go ahead and hit him from behind and finish it up. How do folks consume, how do folks watch are watching balls with you in St. Louis?
I mean, everywhere now, right? Yeah, you can find us at Ball Watching STL on X, on Instagram. We're on YouTube. We're on Threads. We're on TikTok now, dipping our toe in those waters. And yeah, we in spite of all these negative times, we try to post some fun stuff on social media. So even if you're not about the podcast, check us out. We post some really, really fun clips and bits, GIFs, whatever on social media, just to like bring a little bit of levity to some of the situation here. But yeah, at Ball Watching SCL, shoot us a follow, shoot us a like, subscribe on YouTube, and hop on now, because we're hoping that we're heading back uphill.
Okay. And I thought like now, like the second that you're hanging up with me, you're doing like an or something, Justin. I was like, what? You're going live before you go to work? Okay, just checking.
No, that was a work call that I got earlier. So sorry for that. I was like, hey, I will call you back right after this. Been a lot of fun in St. Louis. We are very realistic with this team, but also keeping a positive spin on it. We could not be more excited as well, just in general, for the World Cup coming to the U.S. We are doing something big with Ballpark Village, which is right outside of the Cardinals. They're having us host the 3rd game, which is Thursday night, 9 p.m. They're going to take the Cardinals game off, and we're going to be on the mics across Ballpark Village. So we're just pumped to have soccer, just period, having it grow. You've seen it, John, obviously, and we appreciate you having us on and spreading this. But let's continue to ride this wave of soccer and continue to build on it, because the World Cup is going to be an awesome time in U.S.
Epic, as always. Jake and Justin at Ball Watching STL. Consume their material, people. They know what they're talking about. Do not be strangers, gentlemen. I'm glad we got to do this preview before you guys were heading to Coachella, meaning the club, not necessarily you, unless you're going to Coachella to see everything going on and consume it that way. You know that you are not strangers here. You can crash it at any time, and I know that I'll be knocking on your door if things are going on that we need to discuss. As always, guys, thanks for dropping by, especially in the middle of the week when chaos usually reigns.
Of course. Thanks, John. Appreciate having us on.
There goes Jake and Justin from Ball Watching STL. So that's your St. Louis update. St. Louis City SC. You feel like you have to have that proper emphasis in there. It is St. Louis City SC. And so they're going to actually go to their real work now, since I got them off the air before 9 o'clock. And so it was great to catch up with them with all of their with all the questions that, we have going in. New front office, new head coach. You lose your number 1 gun to LAG. You bring in 2.5 large in the intra-league transaction. So then what do you do with that? What are you going to do with that 2.5? You're going to sit on it for a bit. You're going to spread it out. You're going to try to bring some folks in. You're going to high TAM or DPs. Speaking of which, here's the rundown of what the roster looks like at present when it comes to DPs. They are a little over $6 million in GAM available. They have a DP slot available, so they have that option of either going 2 and 4 or 3 and 3. They can either swing it. They can swing it either way. Marcel Hartel, Roman Berkey are 2 DPs at the moment. Obviously, when you send Joao Klaus along, that opens up that third DP slot. But once again, it gives you the opportunity with the flexibility, but you have to declare either 3-3 or 2-4. Jake Girdwood Reich, Falu Fall, and Sang Bin are your 3 U22s that are currently under contract, but you've got some work to do when it comes to deciding what you're going to do with the money that you brought in from Joao Klaus. So, as always, great to catch up with Jake and Justin from Ball Watching STL and find out what's going on in St. Louis. Okay. And I guess that was opening kickoff. Brought to us by Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. Starting your day with the most important stories in the game, the right way to start your morning. Black Pitch Coffee, part of the SDH community, showing up at events all over Atlanta. Try their home blend made with beans from Brazil and Guatemala, heavy-bodied, with notes of walnut and semi-sweet chocolate and a rich world-class finish. Opening kickoff powered by Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. Okay, I don't know. And like I said, this is probably drifting into Wall Pass Wednesday category. But we mentioned before Jake and Justin came in about what's going on at the Washington Post. And just to let you know what is going on, it appears that the Washington Post, when it comes to the sports department as we know it, no longer exists. According to executive editor Matt Murray through Corbin Bowles, who has been keeping an eye on things. He's the media reporter at The Wrap, and it apparently is for the Washington Post sports department. Matt Murray, 8:30 Zoom call this morning, says the paper's closing its sports department in its current form and plans to cover it as a cultural phenomenon. That's in quotation marks, those 2 words. We plan to retain several reporters to join features, according to Murray, and cover sports through there, he tells staff. And so that is, once again, that's from Corbin Bowles at The Wrap, keeping an eye on everything there. Let's see. No comment from the ownership or the publisher on today's cuts. Statement from the Post Guild. Quoting the Guild, these layoffs are not inevitable. A newsroom cannot be hollowed out without consequences for its credibility, its reach, and its future in just the last 3 years. Then this is from the Post Guild. In just the last 3 years, the Post workforce has shrunk by roughly 400 people. Continuing to eliminate workers only stands to weaken the newspaper, drive away readers, and undercut the Post mission to hold power to account without fear or favor and provide critical information for communities across the region, country, and world. The Post Guild vehemently opposes any more staff reductions. Now is the time to stand in solidarity with our laid-off colleagues and with those who remain, who will now be asked to do more with less. Still time to save the Post. On top of the thousands of letters readers have already sent to the company's leadership, all of them staunchly disapproving of the cuts. We expect many people at our hashtag Save the Post rally on Thursday at noon. And then their final paragraph, if Jeff Bezos no longer willing to invest in the mission that has defined this paper for generations, serve the millions who depend on Post journalism, then the Post deserves a steward that will. So that is from that is from the Post Guild in response to the 8:30 call this morning. So let's see. Shuttering of the books. So it is significant cuts to international, sports, Metro, and books. Corbin Bowles and Michael Calderon at The Wrap. And significantly downsizing the paper, scaling back international coverage, ending the sports section in its current form, restructuring the Metro desk, and eliminating the books section, according to Post sources. Matt Murray framed the moves to staff in a Wednesday morning meeting as, quote, a strategic reset. And so that is, like I said, as more comes out, then we'll sit there and we will relay that information. Let's see. Pulling back from community-based reporting teams. Once again, that's more from Bowles. And you have folks like Dan Wetzel who have come out and been against this. Andrew Marchand has come out against it. Obviously, John Keem with his thoughts for everybody that it was impacted this morning. Steve Weich has come out this morning. You remember Steve Weich from his time. Before he was at NFL Network, he was with the AJC. So Steve Weich has come out this morning. Richard Deitch has come out this morning. And so that's kind of where we are. And I'm keeping an eye on it because there have been some folks who have publicly said that their time is done. And when you look at guys like Stephen Goff, who left before this announcement this morning, and Stephen Goff is now at Yahoo, and Stephen Goff mentioning a department of Povich, Boswell, Wilbon, Kornheiser, Gilday, Shinen, poets, authors, Hall of Famers, and Pulitzer finalists. So that is, and one other individual, let me check before I continue the rest of the show this morning. It is Sally Jenkins, who has just been absolutely on fire with her account the last handful of days. So Scott Allen, by the way, Scott S. Allen on the 280 character app, has been taking requests for specific sports pages to tweet from the Post collection of color PDFs dating back to April of 2002. And so he has been showing a bunch of PDFs from their coverage in the past about what they've been able to do. But it is a sad day for journalism today. And it was, yesterday it was anticipated, but to see it actually in its print is it is profoundly disappointing. And so to see something like that is like I said, it's disappointing, and sadly in this day and age when it comes to big business, not surprising. So Washington Post shuttering its sports department, and this goes to more than obviously just the features and the investigations and the day-to-day. All of that aspect, all of that history now disappears. And it is up to us now going forward to remind everyone about the importance of journalism in its forms and how we can continue to storytell and do good investigations and give you the news of the day. And you've got folks that have been there for almost 40 years that are saying things on the 280 character app and on social media about their dismissals and the dissolving of the department and all this kind of stuff. So I know at some point today I'm going to be having another caffeinated glass, and it's going to be poured out for the folks that we grew up on, the folks that we listened to, and the folks that we would refer to when it came to that particular section of the paper. And not just that section, but obviously the other sections that were affected. But since we're a sports program, just have a thought for those folks today. And I really hope is that going forward, that we look at, that we look at this and have an appreciation for journalism in all of its forms, for daily coverage in all of its forms, how it is, how we've kind of tackled it in this new this new environment that we're in. But obviously, just like I said, just keep your thoughts for everybody impacted at the Post, and it's not just necessarily the writers, but everybody behind the scenes and everyone who has poured everything into their work there for decades. And the announcement today about sports now being treated as a cultural phenomenon is where it's going to be. Improved bedroom, blah, 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 blah. Okay, bot. So much for you. So improved bedroom and a bunch of other things. First off, you're blocked. And second of all, you've been reported. So reporting here and then reporting that you are in fact a bot and telling everybody that you are a viewer solicitation bot. Solicitation bot, 23 characters, and report submitted. So there you go. Report has been submitted. So like I said, just keep your thoughts for everybody over at the Washington Post today and everyone who's impacted by that, family that has had to see the decline and have this announcement in a Zoom call at 8:30 in the morning. So just keep your thoughts for everybody there for journalism, reporting, and great newspapers that are now have sections that will no longer resemble anything that we know them for. So just keep an eye out there. All right. So it appears that sidebar that John Arnold's going to be joining us 10 o'clock hour on Friday. And so that's going to be good. We're going to catch up with him about the CCC, the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza, And we're also going to catch up with him on other things that are going on in the business. So we'll keep an eye on all that stuff. All right. Now, it is officially hour number 2. And in this hour, it is the Vancouver Whitecaps situation. It is what is going on in CONCACAF. We'll talk about that first. We've got Libertadores to get into. An interesting proposal for the Women's FA Cup came across our bow, and we're going to keep an eye out on that, and we'll let you know what that specifically is. So it's news out of Vancouver, but we're going to go to CONCACAF first, and we'll go through juice boxes from yesterday and today. Now, last night was the beginning of the new round of everything CONCACAF and Morning Lokeville. It was, how do we say this? It was 17 degrees at kick in Hamilton, Ontario last night. And it was one of those things where you were looking at the snow drifts that had been pushed back. And for those of you who were here yesterday, you got the preview piece from our friend Christian Jack. We'll hear from him coming up in a bit. But last night in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, you had in Hamilton, Ontario, 17 degrees at kick, wind chill of about 10. It finished at 16 degrees, and it finished with a wind chill of about 7. So after 90 minutes going in, Forge, a decided underdog at a plus 438, Tigres at a minus 169. Your draw was a plus 273. You had a moment in the match where it looked like at one point that was not going to be the final score. Here was that moment that happened last night where you were this close, and I mean this close, to having that moment where, we're going to stay goalless. Once again, courtesy of our friends at One Soccer. Here's what happened last night early.
Special today as well. Playing just inside of Reza Rama. Herrera into the box. Forge don't get a clean foot. Jam not cleared. It's smashed under the crossbar. It's Juan Brunetta. Lau always sends an incredible away contingent. And for the bravest of Mexican supporters, a goal to celebrate the Argentine Juan Brunetta.
Well, Forge has numbers around the ball. They just can't clear it, and this one just falls right to the feet of Brunetta, who makes no doubt about it from that far out. Puts it in the back of the net. Close to being offsides, but I think he holds the line as that ball's played in front of him, and we'll see a good look at it here. Nimick adjusts over, and that ball just slips between the two of them. Hands go up from all the Forge defenders.
Well, Brunetta looks at the assistant referee before he celebrates. The first angle looked potentially the most culpable.
Well, the issue with that is also, if they're going to review it, they could be reviewing for a handball as well, because exactly it looked like there was a handball on Jevremovic.
I mean, Jevremovic did really well to keep his elbow close. Becker in referee Armando Villarreal's ear. Varchek, the captain, asks.
And there you go. That was a minute and a half of a discussion for a goal that got called back. It was offside, and apparently if you used Wenger rules, it would not have been. Where if you were to flip, if one part's off, you're off. If you'd use Wenger rules, as it was pointed out last night in Canadian media, if you'd flip that to the Wenger rules where if one part is on, you're on, it ends up as a goalless draw. A signature moment in Canadian Premier League history where you end up with a goalless draw against a giant in Liga MX. After the match, CONCACAF caught up with Kyle Becker to get his thoughts about the goalless draw.
And ask you about the conditions, Kyle. You played in lots of games. Was that one of the coldest?
Yeah, it was pretty chilly. I'm just happy the pitch was a little better than last year. Allowed us to actually move the ball at times. Obviously, it was cold for both teams, but it is what it is, and I think it was decent for a night of football.
Final one, your first competitive game for about 4 months, to go out there and play a team from Mexico in mid-season form and get a 0-0. As a captain, it must fill you with immense pride.
Yeah, it's special. I mean, obviously from a small club from Hamilton, playing in Canada, to go up against a team of this caliber and get a point at home in this competition, it's huge. So I hope the fans of this club, the people in this club, the fans of this league don't take that for granted. I'm very grateful to be in this competition. And yeah, it's one done. We have another way to go, but yeah, we got to be happy with this.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was our buddy Christian Jack doing the Q&A for CONCACAF. Captain Kyle Becker for Forge in the goalless draw against the opponents that made their way north in Tigres. And you're sitting there going, man, it's cold. And it was. Goalless draw for Tigres and Forge last night. And so after the match, after KJ had the opportunity to talk to Kyle Becker and finish the English language interviews for CONCACAF, here's his post-match wrap from a very, very cold Hamilton Stadium. Like I said, I still think it's Tim Hortons. I still think it is. But the Hamilton Stadium in Hamilton, Ontario, for the goalless draw with those two sides, Forge and Tigres.
Yeah, in the end, a record-setting night when it comes to the temperature, and I think a substantial night in the history of this football club. Ultimately, they didn't get the victory, but it's a clean sheet against the Mexican giant, and I think one that they've learned from in the past. We wondered what the shape would look like and go to a back five. Many heroes and many debutants who played really well tonight as well. We've already talked about the goalkeeper. I thought Batista at the back was very good as well. So I thought Ford showed a lot of courage, a courage to play a different way sometimes, but to stick in there. You alluded to the set pieces. I thought they were tremendous. But, you know, it fills me with great pride to see these teams in the Canadian Premier League go toe-to-toe with these teams from Mexico. Not only are Tigres a Mexican giant, arguably they're one of the best teams in the last 10 years in Mexican football. You know, when people don't understand is that the wage contrast is absolutely remarkable between these clubs. Andre Pierre-Gignac has accomplished almost everything he can accomplish in the game. He earns more in 2 months than the entire Forge players in a year. And so just to put that into context of what was happening here tonight, yes, the weather played a big part, and in many ways you could say it was a bit of an equalizer. But Guido Pizarro, another legend of Mexican football who's played in Spain as well, I will remember how he greeted Bobby Smirniotis at the end and walked down the tunnel with a look on his face of admiration for the way that this Forge and this Canadian Premier League team played here tonight against, as I said, a Mexican giant who brought a lot of threats, and every credit to Forge to play that way and get out of here with the draw.
And the thing was,
and so that was KJ's post-match report where he was freezing, and you could tell he was freezing. I mean, it's like 16 degrees, and it's probably in the neighborhood of 10 o'clock at night, and it's not the warmest of conditions. But KJ, I give KJ credit. We'll try and catch up with Christian Jack when we come into a bit of a gap in the schedule where he's not running around at 9,000 miles an hour. But big moment for Forge and for the Canadian Premier League. Another team tonight has just as much of an opportunity for that in the CONCACAF Champions Cup and the Triple C. So goalless draw to start the night last night. Then you end up with match number 2, and it was one of those matches in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, with Olympia, our friends from Olympia, hosting Club America, going in at kick. Club America minus 133, draws a plus 261, and Olympia, obviously the decided underdog, even though they were at home, at a plus 334. And so the match kind of went the way that you were anticipating that it would, at least in the first 45 minutes. Then early second half, goal on the board for the visitors, and then an equalizer for the home side. Here's that equalizer courtesy of our friends at CONCACAF.
Here's Benguche in close. This could be it for Olympia. Benguche way out right now. Individual effort on the left side. The shot! Yes! Opportunity.
And so it was 1-1 with about 40 minutes to go. And in these games, you're looking at these matches and you're going, home team's hanging around, home team's hanging around, home team's hanging around. They hung around until about 3 minutes to go. And then you end up with the game-winning goal in this one, and that close to coming out of there with a draw before heading to the Liga MX side with Club America at Estadio Azteca for the second leg. But under 3 minutes to go, you have this moment once again, courtesy of our friends at CONCACAF in FS2, and it ends up being the goal that would get the Duke for the visitors.
And the Ryan Rodriguez saved it on the putback. It's on the back of the net. Goal! It's the center back who will be the hero at the end. And it doesn't seem with a late winner, really.
And so it was a late winner for Club America. The shot was saved. The initial shot was saved and parried away, but not far enough. It was, I want to say, just at the edge of the 6, and then it was punched home, and you end up with a 2-1 win for Club America in leg 1 on the road in Honduras against Olimpia. Then you get the nightcap of nightcaps. And this was an important moment for San Diego FC at the Murph Dragon as Pumas came to town. And you figured that with Pumas, they would bring fans, and they did. And Pumas tried to stack the Murph Dragon as best they could. They were a decided underdog at a plus 286, first ever kind of hemispheric competition for San Diego FC. They were a minus 119, decided favorite coming into this one. And then it was 90-minute draw was a plus 256. You end up with, on the board, an early goal for Pumas. 11 minutes in, Robert Morales gets the goal, assisted by Carrasquilla. And so it's 1-0 Pumas. And you're sitting there going, okay, first-time team, first-time jitters, okay, it's going to be a bit of a slog for them. And then this is when you pick up your number 2 pencil, and it was kind of the surprise of the night, really, where you had just a lot of goals on the board in the second half for San Diego FC. Here's a goal montage of some of those, once again, courtesy of our friends at CONCACAF and FS2.
In swinger from Dreyer, it's dangerous, and there is the equalizer. Manu Dua pulls San Diego level. Dua rising like a salmon, and just like that, the resistance is broken. Eisner, menacing ball, and San Diego leads. Vasquez pulls them in front, and they've pulled off the turnaround. It's just patient build-up. A lovely cross from Wilson Eisner, and David Vasquez is there to greet it. Dreyer hooking it to the back stick. It's saved. Mighton drives it home.
And so you end up with goals on the board in the second half for San Diego in this manner. You heard the Manu Dua goal in the 68th minute. Anders Dreyer gets the assist. And so it's 1-1 at that point. 8 minutes later, David Vasquez scores. Wilson Eisner, who had a very, very busy night. And we'll catch up with our friends at SofaScore to get the numbers for San Diego coming up in just a little bit. So in 8 minutes, you end up with 2 goals on the board. And it was pretty much on like Donkey Kong, as the kids say at that point. And it was a big win for San Diego. As I sit here and I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm seeing if I don't care about top competitions. Go away. Then you end up with Alex Mighton getting a goal on the board in the 81st, unassisted. Luca Bombino gets a goal in the 86th. So literally 4 goals in 18 minutes for San Diego FC. And you end up with a 4-1 win, and Pumas on the ropes in the opening round of the tournament for San Diego. San Diego, obviously, yes, they do have to go to Pumas in leg number 2, but getting this +3 margin, navigating that in leg number 2 is going to be huge. Alan Medina gets a caution in the 67th. Same for Anibal Godoy. Alex Maiton got a caution in the 82nd because he lifted his jersey. And Pablo Cisniega, which is, according to our friend AGM Spanish for denied, got a caution in the 89th minute. So starting lineups, Cisniega, Bombino, Eisner, Ian Pilcher subs in the 83rd, Manu Dua, Chris McVeigh, Soma, who was subbed in for Vasquez, and Yepe Tverskov. Yepe Tverskov was a marked man last night. He was grabbed, pushed inside the 6, tried to get calls, and it was one specifically off a corner where he was grabbed and dragged down by a Pumas defender. No call. Did get a talking to for it, and so did the Pumas defender. But Tverskov, he was a marked man. There were times where he was chopped down, and I think he was the one who was in the spot shadow when it came to what Pumas was looking for strategically. Pellegrino got the start. Kieran Sargent came in the 84th. Ingevartsen came in. Alex Maiton subbed in the 63rd. And so Alex Maiton's in for 18 minutes, and he gets a goal and a caution. Then Anders Dreyer, he was in for most of it. Then he was replaced by Anis Saidi at 90+4. And 22 shots, 7 on goal, 13 fouls, 10 corners, and 1 save on the night for Cisniega, which means denied. Pumas' starting lineup: Navas, Duarte, Silva, Leone, Cesar Garza, Carrasquilla, who was subbed out at halftime, Jordan Carrillo, who was subbed in, Alan Medina in the 64th, part of a double switch with Morales, who was subbed for Guillermo Martinez, Pedro Vite, who lasted 83 minutes before Uriel Antuna came in, Jesus Rivas, and Alvaro Angulo. Not used. Rodrigo Lopez was a part of that. Juninho Vieira was a part of that. Angel Rico, Santi Lopez, and Dennis Ramirez. 4 shots total for Pumas in the match. 2 shots on target, 8 fouls. So 21 fouls called in the match, 13 of them called on San Diego. And 1 offside, 3 saves on the night for Keylor Navas, 3 saves, and 4 goals allowed. Mario Escobar, the man in the middle, Luis Ventura, and Humberto Paños were your ARs. Sergio Reyna was your 4th. Benjamin Pineda was your VAR, and Anthony Bravo was also upstairs in 62-degree and clear weather. 22,650. Good run for the folks at the Murph Dragon. 22,650 in that one. Here's Mikey Veras after the match.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think the most important thing is just to take a second and recognize the moment that we just lived right now, because these boys had 3.5 weeks of training. Their break got cut by a week. They had to come back a week earlier. And they play against a team who's 4 games into their season. And not one excuse dripped from a single pore of them. And I think you're not always rewarded in life for having the right mentality, but when you are rewarded, how sweet is it? And then the other thing is our grounds crew here at Snapdragon. You know, we just had a monster truck here last week, and they had to turn a field around, and that's not easy either. And the same mentality, no excuse, just get on with it. And they put a really beautiful pitch out there for us.
Monster trucks at the Murph Dragon. That had to be some serious churning of that grass. And I'm wondering if the grass was just replaced on the hole. But yeah, so a week ago at the Murph Dragon, you had monster trucks. You had monster trucks. And you flipped that field to have the match last night late with San Diego FC and getting a big win over Pumas. 4-1, +3 heading to leg number 2. That's huge for San Diego FC. And figured just in the interest of respect and love for San Diego FC, figured we probably should do this.
And again, it was that MVP. It was that paletero. Ta-dum, pa-dum, pum, pa-dum, pum, pum, with a little.
That's our boy Adrian Garcia Marquez with the celebration. They didn't do radio last night, so I had to pull that one and just have it as a drop for Dreyer from now on. So I now have a drop for Anders Dreyer from our friend Adrian Garcia Marquez. And they didn't have radio, which was disappointing. So was watching it on the TV and tried to last as long as I could, but didn't quite make it all the way through. Numbers on SofaScore from San Diego's perspective. Highest, by the way, Keylor Navas, even though he let in 4 goals, had a 6.3, and that was not the lowest score for Pumas on the night. 3 of the 5 at the back had less than a 6. Rivas, Leone, and Silva. 5-4, 5-5, and 5-9, respectively. Rivas, 5.4. Leone, 5.5. Nathan Silva, 5.9. When you let in 4 goals in 18 minutes, that's what the numbers end up with. Then the highest number on the board for Pumas was from Morales, obviously the goal scorer, who had a 7.0. On the night, Cisniega had a 6.5. Obviously, if he were to have not gotten the yellow card, it would have been higher, probably closer to a 7. Backline, Luca Bombino with a goal scored had an 8. Manu Dua had a 7.7. Christopher McVeigh, a 6.4. Wilson Eisner, very, very busy last night, had a 6.1. Anibal Godoy, an 8.1 with a yellow card. Yepe Tverskov had an 8.5, courtesy of our friends at SofaScore. On the night, it was, let's see, I want to check his stats here. 1 big chance created, 1 key pass, 1 cross completed. 125 of 141 passing at 89%. Passes in the opposition half, he was 101 of 114, which meant he was 24-27 in his own half. 3 long balls completed out of 7. And that's just the beginning. Shot chart, once again, nothing available there. On the dribble for Tverskov, 152 touches for Yepe Tverskov. 1 successful dribble, fouled once, but it was whistled. He was dragged around a lot last night. And total carrying distance, 364.5 meters, 52 carries, 1 progressive carry. Total progression on the night over 211.5 meters. Progressive carrying distance, 27.8. And his longest progressive carry was 27.7. So short of that 1 run, everything was into Tverskov as your point guard, grab and go. But Yepe Tverskov, 152 touches and 117 of 121 passing. So 89% passing for Yepe Tverskov in the matchup last night. Defensive numbers for Tverskov. 1 tackle, 1. He was 6 of 10 on his duels on the evening, too. So Yepe Tverskov, man of the match. Soma had a 6.3, as did Amal Pellegrino. Anders Dreyer, a 7.9. Ingevartsen, a 6.0. So Dreyer's numbers, just so you have them, it was on the shot chart. 3 total shots with 1 on target. Passing numbers, 1 assist, 3 big chances created, 5 key passes for Anders Dreyer last night. 6 of 15 on crosses, 63 of 75 passing at 84%, 54 of 66, 82% in the opposition half, 9 of 9 in his own half, 1 long ball on the evening. On the dribble for Dreyer, 101 touches, 1 unsuccessful touch, 2 successful dribbles, lost possession 22 times, 27 carries, a total distance of 204 meters, and a progression of almost 100 meters with his work. Defensively for Dreyer, 2 defensive contributions, 1 pick, 2 recoveries, and 3 for 3 on his ground duels. So Anders Dreyer had a 7.9 last night. So the big win for San Diego as they are heading into Pumas for leg number 2, up 3 goals. And that's going to be the key for them, is to try and hang on to that margin going forward. So you look at tonight. Whoa, we're going to make it right. And those numbers specifically, you've got matchups, and it is Selaju and Monterrey. That is the early one. Selaju and Monterrey. Obviously, Monterrey, the big favorite in this one. No real surprise there. If I could spell Selaju, I could tell you a lot more about them. It would almost be like, since we didn't have picks of the week in soccer over there, Club Social y Deportivo Selaju Mario Camposeco. Basically, Selaju MC, or just Sela, nicknamed it Super Chivos. Guatemalan professionally competing in Liga Nos Un, the top tier of the Guatemalan Football League. They're located in Quetzaltenango, same city and same department. So basically, the city name and the department name, which would be kind of like our county or a territory, same thing. Quetzaltenango, Department of Quetzaltenango. So it'd be like Mexico City, Mexico, or something of that, where the county name or the region name and the city name are the same thing. Play their home matches at Estadio Mario Camposeco. Most successful team in terms of national titles won, not based in the capital city in the history of the league. They are known as Los Chivos, the Goats, or the Los Super Chivos, Super Goats, Los Altenses, the Highlanders, Los Aguerridos, the Brave Ones, or El Gigante Departamental, the departmental giant. And I'm guessing by that what they mean is the giant, the large force in the league, because they have 7 championships. I think actually it's 11 championships, because they have 6 harvest. They have 6 crescent moons, and they are gold. And then they have a bronzed crescent moon at the top of their crest. So I'm imagining that means 5. And so the team was created back in 1942, 83 years ago. And so 11 titles for Los Super Chivos. I think we'll go with that one. The Super Goats. And founded in 1928 as Germania. Then they were changed to ADIX, Asociación Deportiva Independiente de Celaju. Red jersey, blue shorts. Team was renamed in honor of local footballer Mario Camposeco, captain of the club in the 40s. 10 consecutive Quetzaltenango department titles, and still an active player when he died in a plane crash in 1951. So Super Chivos have been Guatemalan champs 7 times, won the Copa Centenario once, 72-73. And then they, in the 2007 Clausura, eliminated 5-time defending champ Municipal in the semis. And so they have a fierce rivalry with the Suchitepeques, known as the Clásico del Suroccidente, one with Marquense as the Clásico de Occidente, interdepartmental rivals Cotepeque as the Derby de Quetzaltenango, and their other known rivalry also consists of Antigua and a fierce rival of Comunicaciones, El Clásico del Oeste. Circular in shape, white letter crest. Each title, the moon, is added to the shield. So I think they have 11 titles. They have 6 gold and then a bronze one, which I'm imagining is the 5. So you have the largest fan base outside of the capital department and a great tradition within Guatemalan football, considered as one of the biggest fan bases in all of Central American football. One of the most typical characteristics of the supporters is the way they sing Luna de Celaju, a theme considered as the anthem of Quetzaltenango. And so there you go. That is the performance in international competitions. They were in the second round of the Triple C. That's as far as that they have gone. They were in the quarters of Champions League in 12-13, and they're in the group stage of the Central American Cup in 23 and 25. So folks to look out for you have Romario at forward, wearing 99, primarily a Guatemalan side. No real surprise there. And I'm trying to see if Costa Rican side with Derek Sinquiros and Steven Cardenas, Paraguayan Pedro Baez, Colombian Yilton Loboa, Mino de Leon is your team captain, wearing the 6, and Ruben Dario Silva wears number 1 in net. So a couple of other players out on loan, but right now, that's what you're staring at with Celaju and Roberto Hernandez, the manager right now for Celaju, and most recently the manager for Liga Cuates Comunicaciones. So he goes from Comunicaciones to Celaju. That's got to be some talking points for Celaju. That is your notes on Celaju. Very soccer over there-ish. But Celaju in Guatemala, they are tasked tonight with taking on another one of the big guns. And it is Monterrey a minus 152. I figured the longer I would talk, the number would go down, and it did. So it started at a minus 154, went to a minus 152. And 90-minute draws a plus 264. Celaju at home is a plus 397. And then you have Cruz Azul, the nightcap at 10 o'clock, taking on Vancouver FC from the Canadian Premier League. Can they duplicate what Forge did in the competition? Juice Boxers are saying, Magic 8 Ball is saying, not so fast, my friend. Right now, Cruz Azul is at a minus 435. 90-minute draws a plus 478. And Vancouver FC is at a plus 886. Obviously, Vancouver FC is looking forward to this. Not intimidated by the idea, of being in this competition, made it in through the Canadian Premier League and their efforts there. But they get Cruz Azul at home in leg number 1 tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So that's going to be the tall order for them this evening, and it will be a true challenge for them tonight. Now, what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it is from our friends at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. And with that, I'm going to find my notes here. That link is important. So that was interesting. Just decided to shut down on its own. That was intriguing, to say the very least. So, so we were talking about what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it with Fanatis. With all the BNs that you get all of that activity, and you get all the BNs, which means you get the CAF Champions League in Africa. You get all of the you get the French League, you get the French Cup, you get Polish League, morning Abby, and you get all of the competitions that's there. You get Tigo Sports, you get CATV, and that's just in the BN section. You get Liga 1 Max Pro. You get a lot of the leagues in South America. You get Colombia, you get Peru, you get Argentina and the LPF. And the thing about Argentina is that they will stack the league from one set to the next. That literally, it's like they'll start games 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They'll go 5, 7, and 9, or they'll go 4, 6, and 8. So the LPF, they're going to sit there and it'll be all up and down. So good stuff for them, and you can get a lot of the activity in South America through BN and through Fanatis. CDO2, Nuestra Tele, TVV, if you want to add Venezuelan television to it. You can also add a baseball package if you like the South American winter leagues. They have that as well. All of that at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. One subscription, one home, and you can get that here at SDH. Okay, what to watch, where to watch. Now, we mentioned what's going on FS2 and 2 to NA. FS2 has the Selejeu match at 8 o'clock. 2 to NA has the doubleheader, 8 and 10. Fox Deportes has the French Cup at 2:30. BN and Espanyol has the Polish League at 2:30, and the Copa Sudamericana tonight at 7:30. Segundo de Mayo and Alianza Lima. Obviously, we'll be talking to our buddy Nino Torres about this tomorrow, more in depth. You've also got ESPN Plus. You've got the A-League that happened very, very early this morning. The German Cup at 2:30. Copa del Rey doubleheader at 3. Fox ONE has 2 French Cup matchups for you and the Champions Cup at 8. Paramount Plus has Copa Italia noon and 3. Aberdeen and Celtic at 3 o'clock. In the Premiership, probably talk to Jared about that next time he's up. And then the League Cup semi, Manchester City, Newcastle, that is also at 3 o'clock. And so that is the activity of what to watch, where to watch it on Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Okay. We mentioned what's going on in Major League Soccer. And it is one of those where you are keeping an eye on what's going on in Vancouver. You really are keeping an eye on what's going on in Vancouver. And it is a stadium situation where the Whitecaps, who are still up for sale, by the way, and they've been up for sale for about a year and a half, they're looking for a new venue, that could help them out financially, where they list themselves as 7th in attendance and last in game day revenue. There have been discussions. We'll get into that in a couple of these pieces that you'll hear coming up in a sec. And now that there are negotiations with the city of Vancouver about getting incentives inside BC Place if they stay. Here's a couple of the pieces that came from the Four the other day, and we're going to hear from inside BC Media. First and foremost, here is the presentation from our friends at CTV, and you're going to hear the voice of Kevin Chirac as he breaks down what's going on from his coverage of the Vancouver Whitecaps stadium situation, once again, courtesy of our friends at CTV Vancouver.
Send Vancouver to the conference final.
Just weeks before kickoff of a new season, the Vancouver Whitecaps CEO says business at BC Place just isn't working.
From our side, it feels like there's nothing left.
That was team CEO Axel Schuster on Friday. The team's been up for sale since late 2024, and Schuster says there are no interested buyers, citing the team's challenges in turning a profit while playing in BC Place, which is run by the provincial government agency PAVCO. But today, the provincial government says it's made an offer on a new lease deal at BC Place.
PAVCO makes about $1.5 million of profit from the stadium arrangement that they have in place. And yesterday's package that we offered them commits to returning the entirety of those profits back to them so that they'll be operating at net zero for all the Whitecaps games going forward.
In other words, the province says it's willing to give up all of its profits from Whitecaps games at BC Place. But Schuster says it's not enough, telling CTV News in part via statement, unfortunately, our gap between being top 7 in attendance and last in revenue is so significant that this effort alone isn't the game changer that is needed for long-term sustainability. The back and forth between the Whitecaps and PAVCO are ongoing, but Callan says there's only so much the government can offer.
We have to find that balance between making sure that they can be viable as well. The taxpayers are not operating and running a professional sports scene.
Just before the new year, the City of Vancouver and the Whitecaps signed an MOU to enter exclusive talks on a proposed new stadium and entertainment district at Hastings Park. But a new stadium could be several years away. Today, the mayor urging the province to get the deal done with BC Place.
I would really implore that the province, sharpen their pencils and support the Whitecaps, because we're talking about a generational asset that is incredible. Like, it's so important to the residents of Vancouver, but it also makes a lot of economic sense.
Schuster says the team's committed on working to find a long-term solution to stay in Vancouver. The province says talks between the two are happening daily. Kevin Chirac, CTV News, Vancouver.
So that's the word from Kevin Chirac at CTV. And here is another perspective on what happened. You heard, obviously, from Axel Schuster from late last week as a part of the CTV piece. Here is the kind of the developing story that, as it happened yesterday, courtesy of our friends at Global TV. And you're going to hear the voices of anchor Colleen Christie and their sports director, Squire Barnes. And here is what happened with them. And they brought Squire in for the noon show to break everything down with the announcements that happened there. So here is the global piece, once again, from their noon news, Colleen Christie and Squire Barnes.
Good afternoon. I'm Colleen Christie. Thanks for joining us. We begin with breaking news and some information about the Whitecaps and a deal that they're hopefully going to strike with the provincial government. Squire Barnes is here with more.
Yes, so the provincial government has answered some of the Whitecaps' concerns. One of the things the Whitecaps have been complaining about the last couple of years is they're not getting enough money out of game revenue when they play games at BC Place Stadium. So Ravi Kahlon, who is the point man for the province in negotiating with the Whitecaps, he's also a Whitecap season ticket holder, so he likes the soccer team being here. He says that BC Place will now give the Whitecaps back all the profits they make in a given year on Whitecap games, which is about $1.5 million. Not a ton of money in the big scheme of things, but it is money back in the Whitecaps' pocket. And furthermore, they will work with the Whitecaps on trying to get them more money from food and beverage sales on game days. Basically, right now, the Whitecaps don't get very much of that, and the Whitecaps would also like some in-stadium advertising money they can get as well. Now, we haven't heard from the Whitecaps yet about whether they like this offer or not, but the one interesting thing about this is it sounds like the province does not want the Whitecaps to build a new stadium at Hastings Racecourse. They would rather have them stay, not just in the short term, but in the long term at BC Place Stadium.
I've said many times, we want to keep the team here. That's why we've offered to return the dollars back to them so that they can have a better financial arrangement. We believe all these things and the additional revenue opportunities that we've put in front of them put the team in a better place. But it doesn't solve the problem that the team's owners want to sell and find a way to maximize their profits. We can't solve that problem for them. What we can do is make sure that the contract they have with Pavco is as good as it can be, and we believe it's a pretty good deal.
All right, so we haven't heard from the Whitecaps yet because this has just been announced, but we will see what they have to say about it. And when he talks about ownership, I do think the Whitecaps main owner, Greg Kerfoot, would still remain an owner if somebody else wants to buy in. It's not like the Whitecaps want to sell 100%, unless, of course, they feel they can't stay in Vancouver. Then they would sell 100% of the team.
All right. Thanks, Squire.
And that is Colleen Christie and Squire Barnes from Global in Vancouver. So to circle back and go back to Friday and work our way forward, you've had Major League Soccer in the past say that BC Place, and this goes back to July, Commissioner Don Garber said that BC Place, as it is currently set up, is untenable. And that goes back to July. Dan Courtemanche actually did have another statement that came out earlier this week, and it was, let me see if I can find the Vancouver Whitecaps statement by Major League Soccer, and they've offered up the short-term lease. We'll get into that in a second. So let me see if I can find the quote from the league. And let me see if I can find, hang on just a second, Axel Schuster last week. And you've had that, hang on, expansion. And where are the words from Dan Courtemanche? Okay, so they're not in that particular piece. So I'm looking for a particular quote that was given by the league in addition to okay, so Dan Courtemanche late last week, who is the chief communications officer for Major League Soccer, and he posted a statement. I'm trying to find it, and it was posted. Where is it? Okay, so it's not there currently. Okay, so much for that idea. All right, hang on. So let me see if I can find the one more place. All right, so Substack, obviously they're not giving up, and that's not there. Okay, so anyway, it was a prepared statement that Dan Courtemanche had released earlier this week. But anyway, Don Garber at MLS All-Star Game in Texas. This dates back to Austin. So you had Commissioner Garber telling Vancouver-based freelance soccer reporter Harja Hall he'd received updates from the team in recent days. Garber was unequivocal when asked by Jahal back in July. Quote, "The update is we've got to get a new stadium situation for the Whitecaps. We have no plans to move the Vancouver Whitecaps, but right now they don't have a viable stadium situation." He also said, "It's not our first rodeo. We'll figure that out. We'll be able to get the stadium. I hope we're working hard to it." And so then it was back in July, Axel Schuster went on with the Sakarish and Price, acknowledged Garber's comments, and said what the commissioner was saying was in line with what Schuster has been saying. The team's priority is to stay in Vancouver, but they need a new stadium situation. Back in July, he said, "I would say with this, I have a very strong message from our commissioner that everyone in our market should get behind us and support us in the approach to put as much pressure on those who can make final decisions on this to make it work." And that goes to Schuster about the team's hopes to build the Hastings Park piece that you heard about a couple of minutes ago, building that new stadium in East Vancouver at the P&E. So the team said months ago, earlier in 2025, that it had conversations with the city of Vancouver about redeveloping land at the P&E where Hastings Racecourse currently sits. Land in question is managed by the city as part of a trust from the province. Legislation around the trust grants the city power to manage the park in line with its long-standing uses. So then The question is, as posed by the province at the time, would switching the racecourse property over to a sports stadium fit with its long-standing uses? Long been a movement to make the park more like a park, especially if current amenities were to close. So if the racetrack closes, the land should become green, according to some folks. And so the horse racing lease is up in May, so 3 months from now. Most assume that the horse racing track is done. Soleil Wildtooth Nation has signed a deal to take over the connected casino license, but not the horse racing operations. And they've acknowledged they want a seat at the table should the Whitecaps talks about moving in get serious. But according to the province at the time, it's also not clear there can be a casino without a horse racing operation. They could probably look at a place like Birmingham and see that while there is a course, it is off-site activity that is attached to it, as an example. People who run the actual horses at the track insist licenses are tied together, that they can't legally be separated. And so then having the new stadium obviously would help the Whitecaps in pursuit of new ownership. Greg Kerfoot went to enlist the aid of Goldman Sachs to try to get new aid and a new owner. And you're hoping that if you are a Vancouver Whitecaps owner/fan, that a new stadium would help in getting that owner. Like I said, the Caps have been for sale for about 18 months now. Other than a few whispers, news around a sale very quiet, still to this day. Schuster admitted there have been, in that Sakarish and Price interview, multiple interested parties going slowly. And then once again, you get into the modern day. Now, Schuster said last week, not enough progress as of now that I can say we have a solution or we have an idea how the solution can look like. I mean, we have a lot of ideas, but so far none of those ideas are possible or can be done only by us. Numerous outlets, of course, then go off the rails, and it's like, okay, then they're out the door. That's not necessarily true. Courtemanche's quote, I found it. The Vancouver Whitecaps continue to face unresolved business and stadium challenges that are limiting the club's long-term future in the city. Operational constraints around scheduling and venue access. Remember, they had to have a match move because they had it was supposed to be a playoff game, but because I think it was monster trucks, they had to play away from BC Place. Operational constraints around scheduling and venue access have intensified in 2026, creating untenable conditions for a major league club. With no clear path forward to resolving these challenges in future years, it's not fair to the club or its fans. MLS continues to actively support the club and work alongside ownership to pursue a solution in Vancouver. However, meaningful progress is urgently required to establish a sustainable path forward. So, then Forbes tries to get into the lease. Complaints about the Whitecaps agreement with Pavco, the stadium operators, twofold. Whitecaps don't get a large enough share of the revenues generated from their matches to make the lease financially sustainable. Once again, that goes back to what Axel Schuster said, 7th in attendance, last in game day revenue. 2, the Whitecaps and Major League Soccer don't have enough control over the club's home schedule, with conflicts this season forcing the club to potentially play multiple matches at other venues. Will not include regular season matches, but it could include the CCC, CONCACAF Champions Cup, or MLS playoffs, and will definitely, according to Forbes, include at least one 2026 Leagues Cup match. Schuster said back on Friday, 30 to 40 different potential ownership groups have explored the club's finances since that announcement, late 2024. None have been willing to purchase even a small stake in the club and keep it in Vancouver before a better stadium situation is secured. Almost last month, December. Club in the city reached that one-year MOU that was talked about in the pieces from CTV and from Global to continue to explore options for construction of a permanent home for the Whitecaps in the area. It goes back to Hastings Park. If it doesn't yield progress at the end of 26, the current ownership group could be free to sell the club to a buyer that would relocate. Previous long-term lease at BC Place actually expired at the end of 25, and the club and Pavco, the stadium operators, have only entered into a one-year extension. And then you get into all of the vultures that are circling. Indy, Sacramento, Detroit. But obviously, Don Garber's declined to give any sign the league would resume expansion after San Diego became number 30. And so that would mean that someplace like Indy, according to Ian Nicholas Quillen at Forbes, would have to do it through relocation. Indy Mayor Joe Hogsett has made landing an MLS club a legislative priority. And so in October last, saw the approval of the sale of a piece of land to the city that has been identified as a potential stadium construction site. So that's where things are right now with Vancouver. And it's a long road, no lie. But when you are in this situation right now that you're in, as was discussed, David's like, Memphis? Come on, Vancouver to Memphis 2.0. As long as they bring back the Rogues. As long as they bring back the Rogues and the big elephant. But then you're looking at, do you play at the Liberty Bowl, which is what I think you would have to do. Because if you play at AutoZone, it is something that Major League Soccer doesn't do outside of NYC, and that is under the auspice of them getting that stadium built, which is now being built. Dillon Butler Estate's being built, and that's where you are. So I think if it's Memphis, it's probably Liberty Bowl, but then they might have to sit there and look at the surface. Or is there someone in Memphis, as an idea, that would want to build a stadium facility that is flat out new for soccer? 25 to 30,000, no less. Build your own and relocate. But yeah, I mean, right now you're looking at. Let me look at the TV markets, and then actually tell you what. Let's look at the TV markets. Let's do it that way. U.S. TV ADI, areas of dominant influence. So here is how it looks. No, I just want TV markets by size. I don't want it's like, here, buy a television. No, I don't want to buy a television. I want to look at the TV markets themselves. 10th richest man in the country owns the Grizz. But would he want to bring soccer to town? So here's what you're staring at when it comes to markets and ones that don't have Major League Soccer currently. Tampa St. Pete, market number 11. Phoenix, market number 12. Detroit, market 14. Let's see. Cleveland, market 19. Sacramento, market 20. Raleigh-Durham at 22. Indy at 25. Pittsburgh at 27. Then you've got Baltimore at 29. So it's a handful of markets. And San Diego's at number 30. Kansas City's 33. Austin 34. Austin's gone up like 18 market sizes in the last handful of years. They were in the 50s when Austin FC was being considered as an idea. When Anthony Precourt was considering moving the crew to Austin, they were in the 50s in market size. Now they're at 34. So you've got Columbus at 35, Cincinnati 37, and I think 37 is the lowest market size that is in Major League Soccer. Yeah, I think that's right. So Columbus at 35. So you've got 30 of the top 35 TV markets right now. Well, 27 of the top TV markets right now in the United States represented in Major League. Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, the other three. So 27 of 35 currently right now are there with Major League Soccer. And are you dumping out again? Why are you dumping out this morning? Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so 27 of 35 markets for Major League Soccer. And that's what you're looking at right now. Vancouver, when they were looking for a new buyer, a new owner, late in 24, you kind of thought that that the writing might have been there at the time, but the fact that they've stuck it through in the last year and a half and they've gotten to MLS Cup and they've invested. I mean, they haven't just sat on it. I mean, they bring in Thomas Mueller. Vancouver hasn't just sat and waited for somebody to come by and wait for a vulture to come in and pick up the franchise. They've invested, made it viable. And so the discussion right now is trying to figure out what it's going to look like with the prospect of a new stadium deal out at Hastings Park. Is that going to be allowed? That's more of a May question, I think, than a now question. And then I think that's where you are. It's going to have to be stadium before owners. And you noticed that the city is more than happy right now to sit there and go, all right, find the $1.5 million that is available, where Pavco has proposed that 1-year deal, keeping all game profits up to $1.5 million to bridge 26. So that is helping out. But right now, obviously, Axel Schuster is looking for more. And you wonder what that gap really is. 30th in game day. Let me see if they post anything resembling game day revenue. MLS game day revenue. Let's see if we have that. Highest match day revenues. Okay, sportvalue.com posted in October. MLS is 6th in leagues with $1 billion in match day revenue. Major League Baseball, NFL 4.4, 4.2, NBA 3.4, NHL 3.1, 1.2 in the Premier League. MLS is $1 billion in 2024 in match day revenue. So then your teams with match day revenue, the highest, and this is 2024 in U.S. millions. You do not have anyone in the top 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, top 27 that is attached to Major League Soccer. Top 27 are not in Major League Soccer, according to Sports Value out of Brazil. Then a study from McLean Gray at the Michigan's Journal of Economics. Valuation and generation of revenue. Please tell me there's a table that I can look at. Okay, so it's a one-pager. Okay. LAFC generated $150 million in revenue, according to Birnbaum. Valuation to revenue multiple of roughly 8.3. Messi and Friends produced a multiple of roughly 6.7. LAG valued at $1 billion, bringing in 102, yielding a multiple near 9.8, the highest of the three clubs. In contrast, multiples of Europe's elite are significantly lower, despite revenues being much greater. It's because they debt spend. Real Madrid valued at approximately $6.5 billion, generating 1.13 in revenue, multiple of 5.8. Manchester City and Bayern Munich at 5.7 and 6.3. Evident, according to the study from the Michigan Journal of Economics, MLS franchises tend to have higher multiples of revenue compared to their European counterparts because they don't debt spend the way that European clubs do. If MLS franchises are not basing their valuations on revenue to the same extent European clubs are, likely the valuations are priced on expectations of league growth, structural upside, and future opportunities for monetization. Partly true, but once again, you have Real Madrid debt spending out the you-know-what. So that's what so Michigan Journal of Economics tries to come in and look at multiples, valuation versus revenue. Team values, revenue streams, Deloitte Money League, revenue growth backed in LinkedIn, unmatched fan experience, and so on. Okay, so nothing readily available when it comes to game day revenue numbers. But anyway, that's what you're looking at with Major League Soccer to date. No, it's Messi and Friends. It's going to be Messi and Friends. This has to do with their revenue, Abby. That's all it's about. Okay, so keep an eye on the BC situation with the Whitecaps. Right now, it's a short-term deal that's been offered. It's a 1-year deal of operation, Keep an eye on May when it comes to the stadium in and of itself. And if they're going to try and do something at BC Place, or if they're going to try to do something out at Hastings Park and have their own barn where they can have more of a control of their own revenues, and then who would be knocking on the door, trying to sit there and say, "Ooh, I like that idea. I'll be your new owner." So right now, that's the situation with Vancouver, as they have a year to go in this current deal. Hopefully, that is going to add 1.5 million in their coffers that they didn't have previously. So keep an eye out. Keep an eye out on that. And so we'll let you know as that continues to go. Quickly, OFC, the Pro League, we're going to catch up with Ronan Wynn tonight at 6 on tape, and that will be turned over and will be played later in the week. Tomorrow, by the way, it is Around the World in an Hour with Nino and Nico, and we will catch up with them in hour number 2. We'll have what happened with CONCACAF and everything else and all of your news. That's going to be in hour number 1. Nino and Nico, the Power Hour, in hour number 2. On Friday, it's going to be our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring at 9:30. John Arnold's going to join us at 10, a little after 10 o'clock. And we'll talk Texas Tech. We'll talk CONCACAF, maybe a little Liga MX. We'll find out what's on his mind. And if you have not subscribed yet to Get CONCACAF, his Substack, you should. It is the Bible for folks. And if I didn't have it, I would be just printing all of his stuff anyway, and it would be a stack of documents about that thing. So John Arnold's going to join us at a little after 10 o'clock on Friday, and we'll find out what's on his mind as we go. We're also going to catch up with our friends at South Island United in the OFC Pro League, because they've got a couple of developing stories that folks need to know about on a worldwide scale, and we'll catch up with them. And we're also probably going to go to Samoa and find out how someone who is in the business of apparel in Oklahoma ended up on a team playing in the OFC Champions League, currently in Samoa. So BYU to Oklahoma to Samoa to play for a team from Tonga, I believe. So that's coming up as a feature, coming up in short order. And it is looking forward to that. Okay, so matches in this round. So as we go, results, and let's see. So round 1. Okay, so round 2, as we're getting closer to matchups, I need results. I need results here in round number 2. So last night, South Melbourne and Bula drew at 1. Solomon Kings and South Island. We're getting a lot of draws in the league. And remember, these guys had a couple of weeks of training camp, and now they're just kind of splashing in for the first time ever for a league. Bula FC and South Melbourne tied at 1 late last night. Solomon Kings and South Island United, a goalless draw. Before that, PNG Hikari and Vanuatu United. And once again, the continuing story of our friend William Cardona continues to be an impact for Vanuatu United. Then Auckland 4-0 winners over Tahiti, and Bula beat Solomon Kings 1-0, and that was back on the 1st. And so you've got those that are in the barn coming up. You've got another day or so before the next round of matches. Remember, it's a hub format. Auckland and Solomon Kings are going to be Friday night at 8:30 local time. You can watch it all on FIFA Plus. PNG Hikari, South Island United at 12:30 in the morning, and then 8:30 at night on Saturday night. It is going to be South Melbourne, Vanuatu. There's your Cardona warning. And at 12:30 in the morning, Tahiti United and Bula. Your standings in the OFC, by the way. Auckland 5 on the spin. They are well in front of everybody else. They've only given up 1 goal. They've scored 13. South Melbourne 2-0-2. They're at 8 points. Bula, Solomon Kings, South Island United all at 5. Vanuatu United is at 3 with 3 draws and 2 losses in 5. Tahiti United, PNG Hikari 2 points and 1 point. Vanuatu, Tahiti, and PNG Hikari are all looking for their first wins on the season. So obviously we're going to keep an eye on that as the league continues to go. And we're going to have a bunch of stories from OFC, whether it's in Samoa in the Champions League or from the Pro League, as they're going through their first ever season. We're also efforting through the Federation, catching up with folks that are in the front office and find out what it's like for them as a part of this, to see the league grow and evolve and where it is and what they're learning as they're doing this. Because once again, first time ever that they've done this. It's been a league that they planned for a long time, but their first time ever that the league has come to be a league. And so they're obviously growing pains in the 8-team league and things like that. So we'll find out what they're learning about themselves and what they're learning about the game and their approach from the front office, and we're efforting that from our friends at the Federation as well. So very, very cool stuff there as we go. A couple of other things that I wanted to get into before we say goodbye today. Libertadores Sudamericana, keep an eye on that. And let's see, Libertadores and Sudamericana. What did I bump out that tab? No, I didn't. Okay. All right. So Libertadores and Sudamericana, they are going on in their qualification rounds. And Libertadores has a matchup tonight. The Segunda de Mayo out of Paraguay and Alianza Lima. Something that, like I said, our buddy Nino Torres will be keeping an eye on. Alianza Lima favored in that one at a plus 122, but they're going on the road. Match time 7:30. And so results in Libertadores so far, once again, in the qualifying stage, the strongest out of Bolivia, one of our favorites, beat Deportivo Táchira out of Venezuela 2-1. They were a big favorite at a minus 435. So that was qualification literally just started yesterday in Libertadores. And so keeping an early eye on that. And I would also anticipate that our friend Howard Hamilton would have shows coming up for you in Libertadores as they continue to turn the engine over. Qualification in Sudamericana really doesn't kick back in until the 3rd of March. And so you're keeping an eye on all of that. But right now it's Libertadores qualifying. Sudamericana qualifying is in March, coming up in a little while. Okay, now, late last night, we kind of keep an eye on what's going on in and around the planet. And there was a proposal that was put on the board. And it had to do with the Women's FA Cup in England. And I know that it sounds kind of random to discuss that. But it was one of those proposals where you're looking at, okay, do you really want to go down this road? And it was something that came through as a proposal, and you're going, okay, do you really want that? Now, here's what it was. You had the English FA proposing changes to the Women's FA Cup to make the tournament, and this is their word, more profitable to create better storylines for fans. I would venture to say that if you follow the tournament, you could find storylines. Most notable change will be to seed the top 4 teams from the previous season's Women's Super League, meaning they'd be kept apart in the early stages to ensure they don't knock each other out too soon. Same idea behind FIFA separating the top 4 ranked nations in the seeding for the men's 2026 World Cup. Proposal also includes replacing random draws with a fixed tournament bracket once the competition reaches the round of 32. The road to Wembley system, in quotation marks, would predetermine every team's potential path to the final, which means that you could predict future matchups. Goal is to enhance commercial storytelling and revenue. Changes could be implemented as early as next season. Final plans have not been agreed upon. According to sources, plans have received significant opposition from the clubs. Tom Gary from The Guardian had the story, and communication was sent to clubs by the FA in an email back on Monday, which repeatedly, according to Gary, emphasized a need to increase the competition's revenue. Summary document describes the plan to seed four clubs as a, quote, temporary adjustment reflecting the current developmental stage of the women's pyramid, and claims it will create the highest chances of consistent, high-quality matches throughout the later rounds. Seeded teams will be the top 4 from the previous season's Women's Super League. Consultation process with the clubs continues, and you're going to have feedback, and the final submission is going to be made to the FA board in April. Review concluded the FA Cup had significant heritage and should not be changed. Final has to remain at Wembley, and this was after an FA commissioned review of the competition. No additional rounds should be added in order to protect player welfare. Schedule of the rounds could significantly change, proposals suggesting holding one every other weekend for 3 rounds from the last 32 to the quarters. FA proposal claims a bracketed draw enables the development of storytelling and enhanced narrative to the competition, enables clubs and fans to plot the road to Wembley, building momentum and excitement whilst supporting operational planning, end quote. An entry tier review for lower league sides has also been tabled, citing the need to enhance minimum stadium standards. Fan base survey about the competition is understood to have given 6,000 responses. The last 4 last year were Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, and Manchester City. They're the only ones who have won the competition since Birmingham won it back in 2012. Arsenal have won it 14 times. United have reached the final 3 times in a row. Overwhelmingly negative reaction on fans on social media. Specifically, one response from Brighton was put to the board, where the folks from Brighton were less than happy about it. So keep an eye on that one. And keep an eye on what's going on there. Other storylines, just trying to sit here and see if there were any stories we missed yesterday. Cristiano Ronaldo is really not a fan of his current situation. Yesterday, you'll remember that Karim Benzema was shifted from one franchise to the other. But Cristiano Ronaldo's no-show at Al Nassr shows his frustration. Will they address it? That'll be part of a larger question for Al Nassr and for the league going forward. So we'll keep an eye out on that as well. Let me see if I've missed anything before we leave for yet another day. And we'll once again coming back tomorrow. And back at it again at 9:05. And we'll go through everything that happens tonight and go back again tomorrow and let you know what's going on. I'm trying to see. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. We haven't done that. And so we'll see if there is any gossip left. Obviously, there are, once again, a couple of places that have open windows. Looking at the summer, Liverpool could rival United and Real Madrid for the £80 million signing of Crystal Palace midfielder Adam Wharton. United could make a move for Jean-Philippe Mateta in the summer after the sale to AC Milan fell through from Palace. Milan, Chelsea, Newcastle, all interested in Dusan Vlahovic on a summer free, even though he returned to Juve to complete his rehab from an adductor injury. Manchester United looking at Sandro Tonali from Newcastle. Everton obviously is going to be open to new offers for Dwight McNeil after that deadline day move to Crystal Palace collapsed. And keep an eye on Dwight McNeil. Newcastle resurrecting a move for Reims midfielder Patrick Zabi in the coming months. Leeds, Elon Meslier could be set for a move away from Ellen Road. Besiktas is interested. Leon Goretzka out of contract at Bayern in the summer, could be on his way to Arsenal on a free. And West Ham can dismiss Nuno without paying compensation if they're relegated. So basically, if they go down to the championship, Shane Thomas, Sebastian Stafford Bloor, at The Athletic, say that Nuno was given a 3-year deal when he succeeded Graham Potter, but a clause in the deal means that he wouldn't get a payoff should he be jettisoned if the club suffered demotion, according to sources. Hierarchy has supported Nuno, no immediate willingness to sack him. Since his appointment in late September, he's won 4 of 19, losing 10. West Ham in the relegation zone, 6 points adrift of Leeds and Nottingham Forest. If they sack Nuno, it's the 5th permanent managerial appointment in 7 years. Moyes, Lopetegui, Potter, Nuno, and number 5. Busy transfer window saw the €20 million arrival of Pablo Felipe from Gil Vicente, Tati Castellanos from Lazio, Axel Disasi, Adama Traore, Keber La Madrid joining on loan. Next up for them is Burnley and Scotty Tuhati on the weekend. So Nuno watch continues. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. I'm seeing if there's anything that I might have missed. But once again, Champions League again tonight. And the Champions Cup, the Champions Cup is tonight. And so we'll keep an eye on that. We'll have that again for you tomorrow with highlights and highlights and post and stuff, as the kids say. We'll keep an eye on all the news. But once again, joined by Nino and Nico tomorrow at 9:05. Thanks again to our friends from Ball Watching for dropping by and giving us the lowdown on everything St. Louis City SC, as there are a lot of new faces. And we'll see what the approach is, and we'll see if there is a level of patience in St. Louis with what's going on with St. Louis City SC going forward. So you're up to date on Vancouver, up to date on St. Louis, up to date on what's going on in Oceania, up to date on what's going on in CONCACAF. It's been a busy morning, even though we got dumped for some unknown reason from the software. But thanks for sticking with us. For everybody here at SDH, once again, it's another go-round of Wall Pass Wednesday here on SDH AM. Mucha Platiel, play it safe. And since it is the end of the show, it means I get to do this. Back at it again, a little less than 22. Play it safe, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.